Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me for another episode. And this week, my guest is Kate. Kate runs the Etsy shop Bolt and Rally, where she sells planters for every celebration. And Kate, I'm just going to jump into something because you cross so many markets and niches. It's quite impressive. But before we get to that, welcome and thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, hello. Thank you. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. Thanks for having me on.
You are most welcome. So before we get into it, can you just tell us a little bit about you, Kate?
Absolutely. So yes, my name is Kate. I live in Toronto, Canada. And yeah, I am the owner of Bolt and Rally, where I've been doing hand-painted planters for about 2.5, almost 3 years now.
Now, how did you pick the name Bolt and Rally? I was trying to figure that out.
That's one of my favorite questions. And it's Bolt and Rally for a reason. I love chatting about it and how it's kind of a conversation starter. But yeah. I knew I wanted 2 words. I just love when company names have 2 words in their name. And so Bolt came from, I wanted something that was creative and a bolt of a piece that you can make something that kind of sparked interest with me. And it also means to do something quickly. And then rally meant to bring people together, or like in a health term, to kind of recover in spirits. So I thought quickly bringing people together. And that's kind of how I wanted my planters to bring some life into people's homes, just to kind of lift up their spirits and make them happy.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you.
How much time and thought did you put into, well, obviously a lot of thought.
Yeah.
But did it take you a while? Was
much.
that like a something that took a while before you picked your shop name?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know like how many weeks I was stirring on a name, but like I loved it. It was one of those things that I was so obsessed with getting perfect. And yeah. I mean, even now, like 3 years later, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I chose a different name, but it is what it is. And I've like fully embraced it. So It was a fun process. I hope people enjoy kind of picking their business names. That's what it's meant to be.
Yes, I know. I get stuck on those things too, because I always feel like, okay, if I do it wrong, now I'm going to have to live with that.
Exactly.
And so one day I feel like it was a stroke of genius. So the quote parent company of, my business is Spare Bedroom Productions, because it's the podcast and the shop, because, I get income from both.
Right.
And I was just telling somebody one day, I was like, well, all this takes place in a spare bedroom, and it's like, it's all produced in a spare bedroom. So I just feel like calling it Spare Bedroom Productions. And
that is brilliant.
That's what they said. So I went, I registered it, I did everything. And then I was telling a different person, and they go, spare bedroom could give the wrong impression of what kind of business you're running.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. And so of course I started spiraling again, like, no. Anyway, I kept
definitely
it.
Not what you meant. Yeah.
For sure not what I meant, but I kept it and I'm living with it and I'm happy with it.
Exactly. We pick it for a reason. I don't know how I'll pick like a kid's name one day. Like, if this was that hard. Oh my gosh. Nope.
So what do you specifically make and sell?
Right. So I don't make the clay planters. I actually buy clay planters in bulk, and then I hand paint them and hand stamp them with kind of sweet, inspiring, cute, funny quotes on them. And they come in a couple different sizes, but I do a lot of like shower favor sizes to big floor size planters. So kind of just any size that you might need in your home or your office. That's kind of my genre.
Yeah. So is most of what you do custom work, or do you have some staples?
I have a little bit of both. Exactly. I have my staples, kind of my best sellers that I'll always have in my shop, but definitely within the last year or two, customizing and personalization has been huge, especially for like wedding gifts or graduation presents. You can't really go to a big box store and get a name printed on something. So that's why people are kind of gravitating more towards the small businesses to do that.
Yeah. And you hand letter each phrase, each quote. How much time does it take, and has your process changed over the years?
Definitely has changed. At the beginning, I used to paint on the stencil and then stamp that onto the clay pot, and now I just use an ink pad. So it's a lot quicker than it used to be, but it still takes time. And I'm a perfectionist at heart, so I like when it's perfectly symmetrical and spaced, and I'll have to like erase it and restart again if it's not perfect. So it definitely takes some time, but like I still enjoy it, which is good.
Yes, and that was what I was going. One thing I was going to say is, since everything is done individually, you have to be cognizant of spacing and, sizing and, just all
Absolutely.
that. And wow, congratulations.
And I mean, for my thank you for my like bestsellers, the ones that I do all the time. I can basically do it with my eyes closed now. But when I get a custom order, it definitely challenges me a little bit more because it's something I've never had to space out before. Or I'm adding more characters than I'm used to, so it totally depends on the order. But I never really know what to expect.
Yeah. Do you usually have a first run that's your practice? That's your practice planter where you'll do it and work out all the kinks and the mistakes, and then you'll start making the actual ones that will go to the customer.
Sometimes, especially if someone's writing to me with an idea for a phrase and I don't want to permanently stamp it onto a planter, I do have some to the side that have like chips or like little marks that I didn't paint properly that I use for kind of these guinea pigs, the examples. Or to be honest, like I use the notes app in my phone a lot, and I kind of write down the phrase, space it out, and do that first before I kind of tackle putting it on the planter, which definitely helps.
Oh, can you format in the notes app on your phone?
Yeah, a little bit, like just using the space bar and like the enter key. Just honestly, as simple as that. It's just kind of a good visual for me to then try to duplicate that onto the planter.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And then I like that in your I don't know what that section is called, but where you talk about yourself. I guess it's the About Me section in your shop.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and so I've been reading about copywriting, and I think you did it so well. Like I feel like I can't get copywriting down because they're like, just say what you need to say, be authentic, use your own voice. And I was reading yours and I was like, yeah, I feel like I know everything I need to know about Kate and what she does.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah. And you put your exact process there. So there's no guessing what you're doing.
Yes.
And after you put the quotes, you seal it and then it's done. Because one of the questions I had when I was first looking at it was, well, what if I put it in a window and it gets wet and the ink smudges? But then I read your About, section and I was like, oh, okay, it won't. And I know why, because you say what you do. So I think that's great.
Oh, thank you. And that's definitely evolved over time because of those questions. Like someone would write me a message like often, and then I start thinking to myself, I better like add that somewhere or add it in a couple places so people definitely don't miss it. And that's definitely helped.
Yeah. Now, why Etsy? Did you already know about Etsy when you thought about starting your shop or doing this as a creative outlet?
Yeah, I mean, I heard about Etsy ages ago, and I was always kind of an occasional buyer for gifts or like Mother's Day presents, that kind of thing. But I never thought I would be here owning a shop. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what inspired you to actually start the shop?
It's like a little bit of a funny story, but so my husband is like a serial entrepreneur, basically. Like if I make like really good pancakes or something, he's like, oh, you have to sell this. That's my joke, and I swear he does it every day. But this one time I did listen to his advice, and I had made a planter just for a home, and he kind of was like, hey, like, why don't you just try selling that? Like I was making more to kind of decorate, and I remembered Etsy being a good platform. It was very inexpensive, just kind of opened it up for free, added a few photos, and it was honestly as quick and simple as that. And then it just kind of spiraled from there.
So right away, did you start getting sales?
I looked into this because I wanted to remember. It was a week later.
Oh,
And I
okay.
had like little hopes. And honestly, I've messaged the girl that bought for me for the first time, maybe a year later, and I was like, "You made my day." Like I remember hearing that
Oh,
cha-ching, and I was like, "What is that?" And it was like my little handmade planter that someone wanted. It was really cool.
yeah, yeah. That's always the best. Did she remember? Oh, I'm sure she remembered you.
Yeah, and she was like, "I still have it in my daughter's room. Like,
Oh,
so glad you're doing well." It was really sweet.
yeah. Now, what drew you to start making the pots? Was it just you doing your own home decor and then your husband's suggestion that that transitioned into your shop, or um, was it like, how did you develop an interest in making these unique planters?
I mean, that was definitely the beginning of it when he kind of mentioned it and I opened it up. But
Mm.
what made me continue is I was kind of always a serial part-time worker. I mean, I had my full-time job, but I always had a serving job where I was working at a yoga studio, all these little part-time things that
Mm.
I enjoyed, but I wasn't extremely passionate about. And then when Etsy did start, or my Etsy shop did start, and I kind of realized how fun it was, like how much joy it brought me, that's when I really put more attention into it. Because if I was going to do something like quote unquote part time on the side, I wanted it to be soulful for me.
Yes.
And that's what kept me going.
Yeah. Now, when you saw that there was potential in running an Etsy shop, right away did you start to focus on turning it into a profitable business, or were you doing it more just for the having not just a creative outlet, but a creative outlet
Hmm.
that maybe just paid for itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it was mostly a creative outlet. I mean, I'm still to this day, I'm a flight attendant as well. And with that job, I have a lot of free time.
Mm.
So I just wanted something creative to do on the side since being a flight attendant isn't very creative and I needed that outlet. But I think I started in July, and by Christmas, when I did start getting more orders and I realized the profitable potential,
Yeah.
that's when it kind of switched for me. And I mean, with it being passionate and bringing in some money, I definitely wanted to make it more of a business than just a part-time hobby.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that you work as a flight attendant. How do you balance the two? Because when you fly, are you typically, how long are you gone? And how does that affect things like your turnaround time for
Hmm.
shipping when you get orders?
Well, I'm usually gone, I would say like 1 to 3 days. I try to be away as little as I can. So I'll just do really long days and I don't have to sleep away from home. But
Mm.
you're right. I mean, when I'm flying, I don't have access to Wi-Fi, so I'm not responding to messages. If I'm away for 3 days, like I'm not making any product. So that
Mhm.
was certainly difficult. So I would batch work quite a bit
Mm.
when I was home. So I had products ready that when I did return back to home, I could package them up and send them right away.
Okay.
And I mean, one of the great things about Etsy is that, oh shoot, what's it called? The procedure time or whatever.
Yeah, your processing time.
Processing time, thank you.
Yeah.
I put that to like 3 to 5 days or sometimes 1 to 2 weeks if I was away for a long time.
Yeah.
So I kind of set the stage and I wasn't disappointing anyone with a late order. They kind of knew when their
Okay,
order was
good.
going to be going out.
Okay, good. So, is it easier for you, would you say, to manage your time um, with specifically being a flight attendant and running an Etsy shop, because you can do that certain days, and then you have time off that you can plan around? Because most people who work and run an Etsy shop are pretty much working every day of the week,
Yeah.
and so the shop is the nighttime job, and then
Hmm.
the day job is the day job, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you
But I
you
guess
understand what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's true. The thing is, like, I found it was honestly a really good balance because when I was flying, I could not think about my shop, but
Mm.
my brain was still kind of going over brainstorming ideas. And I was always thinking about it, but it was a
Mm.
forced break. Whereas if I was working from home during the day or working at a 9 to 5 or whatever it may be, like, you can kind of sneak in and check your emails or you can be
Yeah.
working on some product at home. So when I was in on my Etsy shop, I'm 100% in. And when I was in flight attending, I could just focus on that. So it was perfect for me, honestly, in that balance to kind of separate the two works.
Yeah.
my mindset. I felt really lucky that way.
Yeah. And I can see that too, because I know sometimes it takes removing yourself from a situation, like not looking at your shop, not looking at your stats, not looking at, at emails for new ideas or, ways to improve things to flow. So either new creative ideas, or you might think of a way to make something better when you're removed from that. So I know I get those, I don't know what to call them, like moments of inspiration.
Yes.
When I'm just completely not doing anything Etsy related, and it's like, oh wait, I could do this. And then, I'll write, I have a small book and I carry it around with me and I write stuff down.
Love that.
So yeah.
I love that. You need to give your brain a break sometimes. And if you're working on your shop 24/7, which a lot of people do because we have to keep up with orders, you don't have that moment to kind of, think of new things, new products, like answer an email with like your full attention and your full personality. So it's good to have that kind of break in between.
Yeah. Now, how do you determine the pricing of your products? And has that also evolved as you've been in the business for a while now?
It has. I mean, I can't remember what I charged at the beginning, but it was very low. And I remember getting that first sale, being all excited. And then I was like, oh no, like I actually have to package this up and ship it out.
Yes.
And then by the time you do all that, you pay for postage. I don't think I made $1 from it. So you kind of learn from your mistakes. And I mean, now I kind of have a good system where I'm paying myself a decent amount for my time. It's paying for the product and the shipping cost. And it's all just kind of been trial and error. And I mean, I think that's basically it. Just kind of seeing how things go. Like I started adding saucers into my products just so people can buy the planter and the saucer. But then with that added weight, it was making the shipping fees go up higher. So I had to kind of balance that cost in it as well. And it's not my greatest strength, but it's something I've tried to figure out, in the last couple years.
Yeah. Yes. And because I see that pretty much everything in your shop is free, you offer free shipping.
Yep.
So when you did that, well, first of all, were you doing that from the very start, or did you just start doing that when Etsy started promoting or, asking sellers to offer it?
I did it a little bit before they started promoting that free shipping was a good idea. And it was almost a little experiment, to be honest. I was reading a bunch of business books. Like I would read a lot of different Etsy blogs. And a lot of people did say that having free shipping, it just kind of, it changes the buyer's mindset that they're getting kind of a better deal. And I do it to myself as well. If I'm buying something online and it says free shipping, I'm more apt to buy it than if it's $8 shipping, even though it turns out to be the same price at the end.
Yes.
So I kind of experimented with my shop, made everything free shipping, and I noticed my traffic and my orders were a lot higher. So honestly, since then, I've just left it as that, and I find it's really helpful and something I'd recommend for Etsy sellers if they can make it work.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you said that because I know when Etsy started promoting it, lots of sellers were up in arms. But the truth is, like you said, for people who had researched ways to improve their sales, you would have seen in some, even if they were just anecdotal, that offering free shipping, there's some kind of mental mind trick it plays on people they're like, I'll buy that because I'm not going to pay for shipping. And so when you did do that, how, like, did you do an equal adjustment in price to what you would have charged for shipping on each item, or did you kind of spread it across your entire inventory so that, say, if let's say a planter was $20 and shipping was $5, did you just increase it to $25, or I know that one method is to figure out across your sales, on average, you sell X number.
Right.
And then spread it out so that each buyer isn't paying exponentially more. I hope that question makes sense.
No, yeah, it definitely does.
Okay.
And what I did was your first example. I think
Yeah.
it must have been $22 Canadian. I think I charged for the planter and then $10 shipping. And now it's just all together as, say, $32. I just
Yes.
found it easy to manage. And I mean, I find like to ship within Canada is quite expensive. And to ship to the US is a lot more affordable for me.
Is it
But
really?
yes, it is crazy and it's so much
Wow.
faster too. I can send something from Toronto and it can get to Florida within 2 business days and it won't even get to the other side of Ontario within 7 business days.
You're
It's wild.
kidding. Whoa.
Yes. So I wanted to make sure the price was kind of juggling around the board so that if I'm getting, so that one item that was being sold to a Canadian, say, and I'm losing a little bit more money because shipping is more expensive. But then
Mhm.
when I sell to an American address, it kind of balances out in the end. I hope that makes sense. But
Yeah, it
yeah,
does.
it's just an equation I've tried to figure out throughout the time.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you, well, for us it's the reverse. It's less expensive to send within the US and more expensive to send anywhere outside. Not terribly more to Canada per se, but in
Hmm.
general. So it blows my mind that it's more expensive within Canada and then
Oh my gosh,
less
yes.
to the
It
US.
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. It just Canada Post. Anyway,
Yep.
so when I started offering the free shipping as an experiment, and I wrote about it on the blog on my website because I was just going to test. But what I didn't realize was if you use the button that changes everything, automatically it adds all the shipping prices to each individual product and then turns everything to free. And so some
Okay.
things were the prices were more than I would have ordinarily charged.
Hmm.
And so I had to go back and readjust prices based on, like, okay, if this is going wherever, this person will be paying, X amount more than they normally would, even if they were paying shipping. But I
Right.
have hundreds of products, so I couldn't do it all in one day.
Oh.
Well, what happened was as I was gradually fixing my prices, people started just buying like at
Oh.
the prices that, both prices that I had fixed and prices that I hadn't fixed. And it was
Right.
almost like because they were more expensive, it looked like there was more value added.
Hmm.
And I don't know and it could also be because maybe I was showing up more in Etsy search too, because that is now one of the search criteria. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And initially I would go in and I'd say, this, when somebody would buy something that hadn't yet changed the price, I would go in and I would, change the price and say, I just adjusted it for shipping. And then eventually I just got tired of doing that. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, maybe I was underpricing.
So crazy. Such
Yeah.
a cool experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done that too, where I'll raise my prices, maybe like a dollar, say like something very little, but I'll raise it a dollar, and then I close my computer and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Like, no one's gonna buy it for an extra dollar,
Yeah.
and then the sales start coming in, and I'm like, why did I second guess myself? You just have to
Yes.
trust that people want your items, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting.
It is. It really is. There's some psychology to higher prices equals more value and free
Yes.
shipping equals I'm not paying for shipping.
Yeah.
So
So crazy.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, for all the flack that people gave Etsy for doing that, I mean, I think there's something to it.
I agree. I mean, I'm sure everyone has their own experience, but I really have found that it's helped. And I tell people all the time, like, just try, like,
Hmm.
put half your listings for free shipping and just see which ones do well. And I'm
Yeah.
sure most of the time it's the ones that do free shipping.
Yeah. Now, can we talk about, oh, do you have or do you think you have any other competitors in your niche on Etsy? And was that something that was concerning to you, or did you
Mm.
not even concern yourself with other sellers in your specific niche?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, at the beginning, I didn't even look. I just kind of did my own thing and
Mm-hmm.
thinking it was just a fun side hobby. But as it grew into a business, I did look, and there were other other sellers doing similar things, but never the same. And I'm a huge believer in community over competition. And as long as nothing is like duplicated, then it's cool with me. And I mean, I'm in Toronto, Canada. I have my own little market here as well. If someone is in like Texas or Australia doing something similar, like there's so much plant love to be had, and there's so many buyers out there that I think it kind of all evens out, and everyone is welcome to a piece of the prize. But there's nothing identical, I would say, to mine, but some things that are very, very similar for sure.
Yes. Okay, good. Now,
I hope that answers your question.
It did answer my question. That's exactly, because nowadays, I mean, for a new seller who's listening to our conversation and has some type of hesitation about starting to sell on Etsy, because you look around and you see other people already selling what you're selling or doing something similar to what you do, you're going to be hard pressed to go anywhere other than if you were to build your own website and not see other people doing something similar. So there will always be some level of competition, but approaching it the way you did, where, you know, you just get in there and do what's in your head to do, and then you can iterate and see what other people are doing. And I think instead of trying to copy what other people are doing, that can give you ideas on how to differentiate what you're doing even more, so you stand out. So rather than running away from competition, using your competitors, if that's the word people want to call them, but using that to create a difference in your product. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like finding inspiration. Like, you don't need to duplicate anything, but just find inspiration. I mean, think of all of the like candle companies out there. Like, I have personally like 20 different companies of candles in my home, and I love them all individually. Like, so why not have like 10 different styles of jewelry? Or I don't want that to ever be something that stops someone from opening a business, because as long as you put your spin and your personality on it, then you're gonna, like, customers are gonna love you for you. And if they don't love you for you, they're gonna like someone else that's kind of similar, but they like their style a little bit more. Like, there's so many of us, and everyone's gonna find their own style.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think like maybe this isn't the best example. In my head, it sounded good, but now I'm thinking of saying it out loud. It doesn't sound as smart, but like if you take Macy's and Nordstrom, they're both department stores. They both sell dresses. They both sell shoes. They both sell, but you don't see one shrinking back because the other is selling the same things. I will go and look in both.
Yeah,
because one might have something that's slightly suits my preference at that point in time that the other one doesn't have, and vice versa. So
I agree. And I mean, I'm still human. Like, I do get those kind of pangs in my chest sometimes where I'm like, oh, like that is awfully similar. Or like, I've even had this girl message me on Instagram, and she's like, oh, like, I love your work. I started like painting and doing my pots exactly like you recently. And I'm like, oh no. But then same thing, like, she was in a whole other country and she's finding her creative outlet. I think you just have to kind of take a deep breath and just focus on what you're doing, and just kind of root for everyone. Pun intended with the plants.
I get it. Good one, Kate. Okay, let's talk about promoting your Etsy shop. Now, I like that you're not just focusing on the online space. You do pop-ups and you do conferences and events in Toronto. So let's just talk about all the things that you do to promote your business on and offline, wherever you want to start.
Sure. I mean, we can start online. So obviously Etsy is my biggest source of traffic and buyers, but I also do have my own website on the side. Something I started maybe a year ago just to kind of test it out. And I mean, there's a blog attached to it, so it's a bit more of an open creative space. But as you mentioned, I do a lot of pop-ups in the Toronto area.
Sorry, 1 second, Kate.
Yep.
For anybody who wants to check out Kate's website, it's boltandrally.com. That's BOLTANDRALLY.com. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, that's wonderful. Thank you. I do like a lot of like plant blog posts, as many as I can. And it's just like a more fun space that you don't have that tool on the Etsy platform. But yes. So what was I saying? The pop-ups. Yeah, it's just like another way to connect with people on Etsy and on my website. For the most part, I don't sell plants. I just sell the planter. Whereas in
Mm.
person, I pair all my planters with plants. So it's a different experience. It's something I can kind of chat to people about with my love of plants. So it's just a whole other industry, which is really fun.
I like that. I didn't realize that the plants don't come with the pots, with the
Yes,
planters
no.
on Etsy. But I like that on your blog you're so knowledgeable about plants. Like you go into detail about what's appropriate for whom and what space and what have you, and so it's educational, so people can go
hmm
there and learn more. And you're like plant girl.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much to learn, but I just love learning about plants. And
Yeah.
I needed that platform too, because when someone does buy just the planter from me, I want them equipped with the knowledge to grab their own plant. Or if it's a
Mm.
gift for someone, like if they live in a basement apartment or if they live in like a really bright condo building, these are the plants that would go really well with it.
So when they buy, if someone buys a planter from you on Etsy, do they get like an insert that gives some plant related information or no?
Yep, absolutely. There's an
Oh,
insert that kind of goes over my process of how I make the planter, how to take care of it, like if it gets like totally soaked in water, just to kind of wipe it down to ensure there's no damage.
okay.
And I link to my blog where if they're looking for plant tips or tricks or
Oh,
anything like that, they can
nice.
check out that as well. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. And then for the in-person events that you do, since in with those you actually put plants in the planters as you sell them, how much time and effort does that take, and how often do you do those? Because I'm sure it takes a bit more time to put all that together, in addition to setting up your space at the events.
Yes, it's definitely something. I mean, I've joked about it. I wish I did like cards because they're light and they can be packaged well. Like when I package these planters and plants, it's an absolute chaotic zoo jungle everywhere. But I mean, since I do love it so much, it's doable. But yeah, I mean, I tried doing just the planters at my first market and it didn't go very well. So I started thinking, like, how can I make this a
Mm.
one-stop shop for people? And when I added the plants, it just changed the game because people can walk away with a gift for someone right away, or they can walk
Yeah.
away with something they can take to their office. It was kind of just a no-brainer to put them
Yes.
together.
Yes. I know. I, for one, have never bought an empty planter, but I have bought
Right.
potted plants because I
Yes.
like it's done. I don't have to, I
Yeah.
just need to keep it alive,
You
which
don't
is
have to buy
another struggle in
soil.
itself. But yes, so I can see how that would change the game for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
How do you decide which events you're going to attend? Do you have some that happen on a regular basis or maybe annually that you always show up for, or do you just see what's coming up and each year you pick a different place to attend or event
I mean,
rather?
yeah, I was a little consistent with going to like one or two once a month for the first year I was doing markets, but I did find them over, or I was very exhausted after them. I mean, with balancing flying as well, it was just getting to be a little too much. So now I kind of just pick and choose one a month, or I mean, last year I was getting married, so I barely did any markets. I did one, which was kind of nice to take a break, but it just kind of depends. I love doing the little farmers markets where the fee is really low, and the people are just so lovely and there's like
Yeah.
less vendors. But then I also love doing the big ones where I pay a pretty hefty fee, but then I'm surrounded by so many other makers and a larger audience.
Yeah.
So I don't really have like a good formula for how I choose them. They've all been local, so I just kind of find them on Instagram or they've reached out to me.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of testing the waters a little bit.
Okay. Nice. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to your website, boltonrally.com, do you do you concern yourself a lot with analytics and the data to determine whether the effort you're putting into it is worth it? And do you also find that it is a good avenue to get sales from customers that might not know you from Etsy?
Great question. I feel like honestly 90% of my sales come from Etsy. My website, I don't know SEO very well. I have it as something I would love to grow, but I haven't quite figured out yet. So I mean, when I get a sale off my own website, I'm like sometimes a little bit shocked, or I'm like curious where these people found me. So now, like with my Instagram and with Pinterest, I'm trying to direct them a little more to my website just to test it out, and the fees are a little lower. But yeah, I'm not super well versed in the website SEO. That's why I love Etsy so much, because it kind of does it for you.
Right. Yes. And did you set up the website yourself?
I did, yeah, which I love doing. Like that's kind of why I also did it. I love creating something new, like kind of putting all the pages together. That part is so much fun.
Yeah. Nice. And you used what platform?
I use Squarespace.
Okay. All right. And I will put a link to Squarespace for anyone who wants to check that out. If you don't have one, a website yet of your own, and you're thinking about it. I've heard good things about Squarespace, about it just being easy to use.
Easy.
Yeah, that's the word I always hear.
Exactly.
Yeah. My website is I use WordPress, and easy is not the word I would use to describe learning. Yes, but I didn't know about Squarespace, and so I started on WordPress and really just battled my way through learning it. And I mean, once you learn it, you get it. But had I known about Squarespace before I was on WordPress, I probably would have, because over and over, I just hear people say it's easy. So if you're an Etsy seller and you don't have the mind space to try and learn something really technical, I would probably recommend Squarespace over WordPress. But I haven't used it, but I know WordPress was not so easy to learn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, it has lots of pros. And if you're really technically inclined and you like to fiddle with stuff on the back end, WordPress is probably what you want. But I'm not, and I don't.
Yeah.
But it's what I ended up with, so I had to figure it out.
Oh, and I mean, it's something. I'm not sure if anyone has talked about this before, but the reason too I made my own website is like, heaven forbid, like something happens to my Etsy shop and it like there's a glitch and it shuts down, or my Instagram like deletes everything that I've ever posted.
Oh, no.
I have no trace of any of that stuff. So it's good to have your own platform that you're kind of working on that's kind of in your hands just in case.
Yes.
And it's kind of, it's a good future investment, I think.
Yes, always, always.
Always.
Now, so how much time are you spending on your shop? And I'll say this, at the time we're recording our conversation, it's April of 2020. We're right in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and everyone is on lockdown, and we all have, well, most of us have stay-at-home orders. So I guess my question is kind of two parts. Now with COVID going on, how has running your business changed as opposed to before, in what used to be our former normal, which I really don't think it's going to be the new normal after this, but can you compare and contrast?
Absolutely. I mean, as we're talking right now, my shop is like the busiest and craziest it's ever been.
Wow.
Like super grateful, and I hope other small businesses are feeling the same love. I think it's because people are home. We're kind of online shopping a little bit more. Yeah. Mother's Day is also next month, and you're not able to go to your favorite shops to purchase things. So now people are looking online, and I think for the most part too, people are more interested in supporting small businesses. I mean, a lot of small businesses are being hit by this pandemic, and we're just kind of all trying to support them a little more. So with all that being said, I'm grateful that my business is doing well in this moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And are you using the time more to focus and grow and expand your Etsy shop because your flight attendant job is not the same now as it was before?
Yes, right. So exactly. I mean, now I have every spare moment to be putting towards my Etsy shop since I did get laid off from my flight attendant job for the time being. And I honestly don't even know when I'll be going back to that job at the moment.
Mm,
So it's been it's been great to just focus on the Etsy shop and not having to worry about balancing my time. I
yes.
do find that I wake up and I start creating and I don't stop until I go to bed because now I don't have
Mm,
those forced breaks.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's fun for the time being. It's been a couple weeks and all is well, but we'll see.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you got laid off.
Oh gosh,
It's
no, no.
never a fun thing, but you're like the poster child for not relying on a day job, having
Mm-hmm.
something else going on. I know sometimes people laugh at the term side hustle or side hustler, but this is just one of those times where it's it's something good that you took the time to invest in and start doing, because now you have a fallback that's thriving when what most people would have looked at as, a stable job, you know
Absolutely.
didn't come through for
I was
you.
just Yeah, I was just talking to my friend about this the other day because she too is not working at the moment due to the situation, and
Mhm.
she's always wanted to open her own little shop. And I'm like just the hugest cheerleader to do it because not only could it be profitable, but it's something you can be soulful about and actually enjoy and get paid doing.
Mhm.
And if it's an online shop, even better because I think this whole pandemic that we're going through is really going to change how people buy
Mhm.
for the time being.
Yes. Yeah. And for
And we
anyone
have the time.
and you have the
So
time. I
start the
mean,
shop.
you have the time, you're being forced to stay at home. I mean,
Yes,
you can learn online if you don't have, certain skills that you think that you need. And for
for sure.
anyone who is listening and thinks, well, Kate started this, in 2017. So
Mm.
she had, a 3-year runway, and so, everything is okay. It's not too late now. Kate, what would you say to that
No.
person that thinks, well, maybe if I had started before all this, it would be good. But what would you tell him or her?
Well, I don't want them to be saying that 3 years from now, thinking, oh, I should have started like during that
Mm-hmm.
pandemic when I was home. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're always going to think that you should have done something yesterday. And
Yeah.
it's honestly never, ever too late. Now's the time to do it. And even don't think of it as this big, huge project either. Like start small. Just open the Etsy shop. It's free. Just open it up
Yeah.
with a cool name that you like and don't post anything at first if you
Yes.
want. Like just in honor all those little check marks and all those big milestones, and like bit by bit you find your way, and it's really not as hard as it seems.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Just start. I know when I was thinking of opening my shop, I opened it. I mean, I did what you said was, I opened it. I didn't sell anything for about 3 months. I just got it open
Yeah,
and didn't do anything with it. And the nice thing with Etsy, unlike some other platforms, is you don't pay a dime until you actually put something up for sale.
exactly.
So you can build this beautiful shop with nothing in it. And then when you're ready, start putting things in it.
That's perfectly said. I mean, I think I made a $10 budget for when I opened my shop. I was like, oh, I'm just going to go buy a couple planters, like the 20-cent listings to
Yeah.
post a listing. I was like, okay, like there goes a couple cents. And then the listing is up and you already have product going. Like it's really low cost.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of takes hitting that button. I know it sounds so corny, but just do all like the little things and they all come together.
Yes. What are some things that you would say you did that you think really helped set you up to be successful on Etsy?
Ooh, I love that. I mean, I come from a PR background. I went to school for PR and communications, and I've always loved just kind of figuring out what makes people happy. And I
Mm.
think what I would suggest sellers do is just try to make every product, every parcel as personalized as you can. I mean, I do a handwritten note in every single one of my orders with a little sticker of a plant, like easy. And most of my reviews, they talk about, oh, I love the handwritten note. It makes people feel connected. It makes them know that you made it with love, I think that's definitely helped me with my sales, or at least with my reviews. And then when it does come to sales, product photography is also really big. I mean, I booked one of my friends to shoot my product photos, which was really nice. And I mean, that was a decent investment, but it just changes the game. You know, you want people to see what they're going to get, just have like a good idea of what they're going to have in their hands. So good photos definitely help.
Okay. I'm actually glad that you mentioned how putting in a note ties into some of the reviews that you get, because I'm looking at the notes I made before we started our conversation, and one of the things I did notice and said I was going to ask you about that was your reviews. I noticed that a lot of your customers don't just, put the 5 stars and then, that's it, or, great product or thank you, but they go into detail about you and about your product. And I feel like when somebody is moved enough to take the time to really give more information about their experience with this, with a specific buyer, it says a lot about what you did to get them to that point, because we all know on Etsy it's kind of hard to get reviews. The review rate compared to sales is quite low, and so to see people writing full-on paragraphs about a planter that they got from you, I was like, what is she doing?
That makes me so happy.
Yes.
I don't even know. I love taking the time to just try to connect with people. I mean, like, I live my life. I just feel like people are meant to be seen. They want to feel appreciated. Like, I love feeling appreciated. So I try to kind of project that onto like my customers. I feel so honored that someone is spending their hard-earned money on one of my handmade products. So like whatever I can do to make them feel my gratitude is what I try to do.
Yes. Well, good job, because they're feeling it.
I hope so.
What is a lesson that you've learned from selling on Etsy that you weren't prepared for and ended up having to learn the hard way?
Ooh, great question. Oh my gosh, I've learned so many lessons. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is a quick little story, but when I first started, I got an order for 100 planters for a cat shelter in California. They were gifting them to all of the volunteers. And I'm a huge animal lover, so I was like so moved and I was so excited to do this. So it took me like 2 weeks to do the orders. I shipped them out and I get a photo a couple days later and she's like, I'm so sorry, but like the entire box is smashed. The entire box. And this was maybe like 2 weeks before Christmas. So I was already busy with my orders, and now I have this issue on my hands, and just I'm a people pleaser. So I was like, I felt so bad that this had happened, and I had 2 options basically to refund her and kind of leave her hanging dry to find new gifts, or to work my tail off to do this order again and package it even better. So that was honestly the biggest lesson in sending fragile goods. Now my packing scheme is like down to a T, and I rarely get planters come broken, but I think it takes those big moments to kind of shift your way of thinking things. And long story short, I replaced them. She was happy. They all made it there and everyone got their gifts, but it was a hard lesson, and I don't think I've cried that hard in a long time.
No, I can only imagine. Oh man. Yes. So, what a nightmare.
Oh my gosh, an absolute nightmare. And I think that happens often, not this particular example, but with having your own business, you're bound to come through some type of obstacle, big or small, many of them. And you just kind of have to take a deep breath, learn, and fix it. Yeah. Because you're the only one probably running your shop that can do it. So.
Yes. And speaking about being the only one running your shop, what plans do you have for Bolt and Rally going forward? Are you enjoying being a solo owner, creating and making and running the whole show yourself? Or do you envision one day expanding and maybe bringing on more people so that you can blow up?
Oh my gosh, I have big plans. I am really excited to hire some help coming up soon. I mean, my husband helps me every now and then, especially with like making the boxes and things that actually take a lot of time, but that I trust in someone else to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I've invested in a new project for Bolton Rally, so it's going to be kind of like a mobile plant truck. It's an old vintage
Oh,
camper that I'm renovating that I'm going to be taking to the markets. And I know that like I absolutely can't be doing that on my own and the Etsy
yes.
shop. So I don't know like how exactly, and I'm kind of nervous to do it. And I'm so jealous of the people who have hired that first person because I know it's hard, but that's my plan within the next couple months is to find some help and find another artist or plant lover that would love this as much as I do.
Yes. Oh, I have well, at the time we're recording this, the podcast episodes haven't aired yet, but
Hmm.
they are coming up. And I talked um, with a couple of sellers who did expand their shops similarly,
Oh my
and that
gosh.
was one of my questions because they had exactly the same types of concerns as you
It's
did,
scary.
and I know the soonest one coming up is Cian and Colette of Ever Blooming Originals, and
Okay.
they talk about expanding and growing because for the longest Colette ran the shop herself, and so just bringing on people to help. And then a couple of weeks after that, I have Charlotte from Crooked Crow Masks, and she did the same thing too. So I think those would be very helpful, not just for you, but for other people who are thinking about expanding, but also kind of overwhelmed with the thought of
Oh,
how do I find the right person? What where do I start? And so they had the same to go through something similar, and
the
so I
same
think
fears.
that will be helpful
I'm
for
so
that.
excited to tune in. I need all the advice and all the support I can get.
Yes. Um, oh, I did have a question. When you sell in person, how do you take payments? Do you use the Square feature
I
that
do.
Etsy offers because it's attached? You do?
I do, but I don't attach it to my Etsy shop. I just use
Okay.
my Square dashboard.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
How seamless is that?
I love it. It's so easy. It's never given me issues. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say. I use it on my iPad, sometimes on my phone. Yeah, the fees are really low to use it as well. I
Yeah.
love it.
Okay. Okay, good to know. I will link that. Is there any reason you didn't link it to your Etsy shop?
Not really. One, I didn't know at first that you could do that, and I had already
Okay.
been using Square.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I also I love keeping my Etsy shop separate for some reason. I don't know what it is. It all goes to like a different account.
Okay.
Whereas with my Square, I liked seeing what products did well at the markets instead of
Yeah.
doing it from my Etsy shop. And like I mentioned, I don't sell plants on my Etsy shop, so my pricing was a
Oh,
little bit
that's
different at the
true.
markets.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just easier.
Okay. Okay. Good. Well, good to know because I know sometimes that's a stumbling block for people when you're selling in person. What solutions to use?
I would recommend it. It's honestly great. And I remember my first couple markets not having it and people asking, "Oh, do you take credit? Do you take debit?" And you lose sales sometimes when you don't.
Yeah,
So it's
for
really great to have.
sure. Yes, because more and more people are not holding on to cash. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so Kate, that's two squares for you. Kate
Yeah,
Square, Squarespace and
that's
Square.
true. I'd never realized that. Oh my gosh.
Is there something, and maybe there's more than one thing, but what features currently on the Etsy platform are you particularly enjoying? And then on the flip side, are there any features that you would like to see offered on the Etsy platform?
Ooh, great question. I use the ads, so I do love checking in to see what
Oh,
listings are using or are bringing in revenue from the ads
okay.
quite often. And I do love the stats tab. Like I'm addicted to looking at the traffic or like I don't know what it is. It's just so fun to me or seeing like what days do better in the revenue.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you mean? Like what parts
Yes,
of
yes, for
the Etsy
sure.
platform? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also love, and actually I heard this on one of your recent podcasts, the restock requests is
Oh,
lovely,
yeah. Yes.
super helpful. I've recently I've run out a couple planters, and then instead of now, like people used to write me, oh, when are you getting more of these in, or like how can I sign up for a planter when it's back? Now they just sign up for the wait list, and we don't have to have that communication, which is helpful time wise on my behalf, and they're notified right away when I get stock back in. So absolutely love that feature.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, for updates, I was trying to think of some ideas for this. I am quite happy with the platform, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything that I would like different in this moment.
That's always a good thing. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe just having like a little bit more creative aspects. I know you can change like the cover photo, you can do the feature photos a little different, but I mean, all in all, everyone's Etsy shop looks the same. We don't change the colors or anything like that. So that would be kind of fun to have a little bit more hand at.
Yeah. Okay.
Just now, the visuals.
Are you a subscriber to either Etsy Plus or, I've forgotten what the other one is called? But I
know I can't remember either, but I am Etsy Plus.
Okay. Have you found that it's worth the subscription?
I think so. And I mean, I've heard both sides, but just like the little features, like, the restock requests, you get listing credit fees. So when I put up new listings or when I renew something, that kind of gets taken off, which already pays for itself. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't know too much about the differences, but I found that little investment doesn't bother me very much.
Okay. And that one it's $5 a month? Or was that just an introductory price?
I think it's $5.
I've forgotten. Okay.
Yeah, it might have been the introductory price. It might be 10 actually now, or like $10.95.
Okay.
Yeah.
That still sounds reasonable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I pay like a couple $100 to do my own website, this doesn't seem that big of a deal.
Yes. Okay. Now, what advice would you give to a new seller on Etsy who is just kind of getting their feet wet and hasn't yet fully, hasn't yet fully gotten, their feet planted firmly on Etsy? Maybe they're still struggling. What would you tell that person?
First and foremost, like, don't be discouraged. It's hard, and especially it's a very vulnerable industry when you're making something or you find like really cool vintage pieces and then you're hoping other people love them as well.
Yes.
Just kind of like be patient and also do your research. Like I've mentioned, I've read a lot of Etsy blogs or just watched so many videos, listened to podcasts on like what tags do really well, when to put up certain tags for certain holidays. I mean, you almost can't expect just to put up a photo and it to do well without any thought behind it. So I think it pays to just do a little research, ask around, like reach out to other Etsy sellers, asking what they're doing to make their shop successful. I mean, it's such a great community that we are willing to chat with one another and kind of figure out the process together. Yeah. So yeah, just those two things, like don't be discouraged and do your research and ask around, I think really works wonders. And that's what I did, and it kept me going.
Yeah. Are there any particular tools or resources that you find have been very beneficial to you in just making your shop better? I know you mentioned watching some videos and reading books. Anything specific that you can recommend?
I look on Pinterest a lot. I hope that's helpful to other people. I'll type in on Pinterest, like what tags work well on Etsy, and it'll bring me to different people's blog posts. And I honestly don't even know what the titles are of those blog posts, but there's just so much information out there to be reading.
Yes.
And I mean, your podcasts, like listening to other interviews works really well just to kind of hear what people are doing to make their shop successful. And yeah, I mean, Google and Pinterest, I think, are just the tops of looking up things, or just like how to start on Etsy. You can literally look that up and there will be pages and pages full of information.
Yeah. Yes. It's true. I get lost on Pinterest. I still today don't know if I even use Pinterest correctly, but I do find a lot of information, like helpful information, which, like you said, it tends to lead to somebody else's website where they're talking, where I get the actual information I'm looking for. And that makes me think, Pinterest isn't social media. It is a search engine, because you go and you look for something and then it takes you to where you get the actual answer you want. So,
I agree. I
yes.
agree. I've even found on Pinterest like how to use Etsy on Pinterest. I kid you not, like even that helps. So you can find anything.
Yes, really.
Oh my gosh.
Now, do you have an Etsy shop shout out? And if you don't, that's okay. But this could be either a shop you enjoy buying from, or a seller who has helped you, or just a shop that you draw inspiration from.
Sure. Can I do two? I have
Of
two like on the
course.
forefront of my mind. So the
Yes.
first one, and I'm not sure if anyone's ever mentioned this before, but it's called The Painted Press, and she does ring dishes.
Oh,
And I just love their shop. I mean, I bought one for a girlfriend when she got engaged for her ring with like a custom engraved like piece kind of in the ring dish. And it kind of changed my business because I saw that she added the handwritten note. They added like this cute little packaging. And then I was
yeah,
like, hey, I should like maybe incorporate that type of thing into my shop. So again, just
yeah,
finding inspiration wherever you can. And
exactly.
then the other shop is kind of a newer shop. It's called Shay with Love, Shay with Love. And she's another local Toronto-based artisan. She makes necklaces and jewelry, and I've bought a couple recently, and I'm just obsessed with them. They're so cute, and I just also love supporting local shops.
Oh, nice. Now, do you
Yeah,
guys have a local Toronto Etsy team there that gets together and has meetups?
we do. Yep, they put on markets.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
one in like our big city. There's one in the little cities around us. There's so much Etsy community around here.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That helps a lot too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely helps. Just knowing like someone's in the same boat.
Yes.
I kind of run into the same sellers at these events, and it's really cool.
Yes. Yeah. I think those in-person events are, very helpful. And especially if you're a new seller and you feel like you're struggling, you know, when you meet other sellers in person, it's a whole different dynamic from just looking on Etsy and, trying to draw. It's one thing to draw inspiration by looking at what someone else is doing, but when you can
Hmm.
actually talk to somebody else face to face and, ask some questions. And I've never, well, okay, no, one. I did meet one. But for the most part, I've never met an Etsy seller that was not willing to help answer questions or just give information. I found that
Hmm.
almost every Etsy seller except that one were just very
Oh my
nice
gosh.
giving people.
I love that. Everyone else but that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what it is. It's something about that community that just kind of like you're all on the same team, even if you're in the same like genre. It's just really cool.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Kate, if anybody wants to connect with you um, after listening to this, what's the best way they can do that?
I mean, Instagram is great. You can follow me at Bolt and Rally on Instagram, and I do a lot of like questions on my stories, or I just love to talk
Oh,
about
nice.
plants too. It doesn't have to be Etsy related. Feel free to pop on by. Other
Yes.
than that, if you're interested in like a product or anything, the Etsy Conversations is really great.
Okay. Oh, nice. Are you on Instagram every day, pretty much?
If I can, I try to post as often as I can. I mean, right now I'm busy and I'm drowning in trying to get things done that I try not to go on as much. But yeah,
Yes.
I'm quick to respond when people ask questions.
Okay. All right. So I will have a link to Kate's Instagram handle. Again, it's at Bolt and Rally, and her Etsy shop as
Thank
well.
you.
And basically everywhere you can find Kate, I will put everything in the show notes for this episode over at convome.com. So you can link up with her. If you want to just go directly to where she is, her Etsy shop again is Bolt and Rally, and her website is boltandrally.com. Again, that's BOLTANDRALLY. And Instagram, same thing. Good job on locking down your branding everywhere.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, Bolt and Rally isn't a common name, so at least that worked for me.
Yes, yes.
Easy.
Thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time out to talk with me. I'm glad that you're busy, and so I'm even more grateful
Oh,
that
thank
in the
you.
midst of being so busy at this time, we could have this conversation. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, and thank you right back. I love this so much. I'm always excited to talk about Etsy, and I just hope everyone is doing well. I'm really excited.
Yes. And I thank you also for listening to the podcast. I hope you and your family are safe and healthy, and I will be back with another episode next week. You can connect with me on Instagram at Convo Me Podcast, and you can get all the links to everything we talked about in this episode and connect with Kate on my website at convome.com.